from you here, all the way around to there. I want you to stand, pick up your chair. Stand behind the chair, pick up the chair. All right, so pick up my chair. Okay, put the chairs here. And, okay, would you like to pick up the chair, please? Hold it up, off the ground, off the ground. Yeah. Okay, now how would you feel? There we go, I'm glad it's off the ground. We need to watch to see it's all off the ground. Okay. Now, can you imagine if we had started this evening's meeting? That one's not off the ground. You can't. It's what? It's heavy?
No, I got a bruise and it's sore, but no, it's okay.
Okay. So, if now I had to conduct the meeting like this, with my back to them, and just speak to you, and in fact, you know what? I think I may need some chairs. All right, over here. So I have a couple of chairs, in fact. All right. In fact, why don't you go and help the lady there with the bruise? It'll be fine. Okay, now, so these are my chairs, by the way. These are my chairs. Now, the whole meeting now is conducted, right? We've been here for I don't know how long. You carry on holding your chairs off the ground. And I address this group of people. How are you feeling? Tired. I like my chairs though, don't you? I'm quite comfortable. Yeah? But I've worked really hard. I worked really hard for these chairs. You know that? I went to university, I studied hard, got a good degree, and then I got a good job. And I worked really hard in my job and earned enough money to buy 3 chairs. The fact that all of you here are standing holding other chairs or whatever, tough. Now, how long are you going to be holding chairs for before you start doing something? What's going through your mind? Play with me. Play.
I'm going to throw it at you.
Who's that? Right at the back. I saw you, I don't know, as soon as he walked in this evening, I thought, there, he's got attitude. So the two of you over here, no, in fact,
Perception amazing.
the two of you, right, if you come over here, I pay you now, lots of money, we pay you, in fact, okay, and you are armed, lethal. Just watch, especially him. He's got the attitude. If he in any way decides to throw the chair or do something with the chair, right, then you have our permission to deal with it. So that's what we do now. We pay. Why? Because for an unjust system, hang on, for an unjust system to survive, we need that. We have to have that for the likes of him. Because now I've heard him talking. He actually says, I've heard him talking because we infiltrate. Okay. He says that in actual fact, this is not fair. This is not just. He was saying earlier that I should not be allowed to have 3 chairs when some of them had none. Did you hear him? That's what he was saying. And it's those kinds of voices that we don't like to do. They're just going to... Can you imagine if all of you just start believing that? So that's why we employ these. And what they're going to do is they're going to make an example out of him. An example. So the minute we make a law that you're not allowed to put the chair down, if you put the chair down, you sort it out. And you actually kill him. Now you're going to think twice, aren't you, before you put that chair down? Because you've got that little child, right? 3 years old. That's it. Yeah. All right? So now you're thinking of family. And when you go home and you say it's not fair, your partner says to you, you know what happened to him. Just keep quiet. Just bring home the money, love. We just want to get on in our life. And that's what happens. Now it's a law that you're not allowed to put it down.
Dangerously close.
Okay, so when you put it down, we convict you for breaking the law. Are you hearing this? We take you to our law courts, and the lawyers don't make the laws, they just enforce the laws. They interpret the law. So you put the chair down out of protest, we take you to the law court to say you're not allowed to put your chair down. We send you to prison for 27 years. But in your minds, you know that that's not a law that is just. So you actually feel conscience-bound to break it. But in my head, who has made those laws, I now label all of you criminals or terrorists.
But I put the chair down yet.
Now, why would you want to do that? Don't you know that you have been born, that's your lot in life? And you just got to carry that lot in life. In fact, God has blessed me and blessed us. We God's chosen. And so that's why we're blessed here. And you just so happen, in fact, I'm quite tired, so I may just lean on the chair. All right, everyone, put your chairs in. Now let's round up before we take some.
I want to know about the people who migrated and moved away from the trouble and just took all their care baggage and created.
Okay. Now, there are some people in this world that because they are born, what did I do? I went from here. I just went like that. Arbitrarily. I don't know any one of you. Because you are born on that side, you carry a burden the whole of your life. You're born out of that womb and not that womb. You didn't choose it. You get born into that economic standard. You'll go to that school. You'll eat that food. And your entire life you're carrying a chair for somebody else, a burden. While others have more chairs than they know what to do with, because you can actually only sit on one chair at a time. But I've convinced myself, this system, we've convinced ourselves, that if you work hard and you can pay for it with your own money, don't tell me what I can do with my money, it's my money. From the perspective of the people carrying the chairs, does that logic make sense anymore? Doesn't. Do you think they care? You're going to have one attitude at the back. You're going to tell someone else, eventually this group's going to work out. They're going to say this, you know what? It's no longer worth living carrying chairs. I will rather die than carry a chair. So the two people here, who by the way are from that group, remember? I didn't employ soldiers from this group, okay? From that group. Just like in your military, totally disproportionate number of poor people. Totally disproportionate about how many African Americans in your military. Totally. The stats are frightening. That group of people needs to fight our battle, and all we do is pay them. They're the ones who get shot and killed or stoned, not me or you. What we do is we build higher walls and employ more of them and enter into more deals. But eventually, they put down. Then we've made the laws. And we say it's actually against the law for you to put down the chair. But some of you realize, no, yes, I've been told my whole life it's against the law to put down the chair, but I don't believe it anymore. I'm going to put down the chair. And I'm going to tell my children, you see, they're criminals or they're terrorists because they break the law. And you will agree because, yes, that's what you've learned. And so it's passed on until there's an enlightenment that kind of takes place. Now, this is exactly what's happening in the world today, and it's happening in this country today. Maybe not along the colour lines as such anymore, but class. So I'll give you one example. When I was growing up, if you were black, you went to that hospital. If you were white, you went to that hospital. Simple. Now, we don't have that. That is barbaric. Now, if you have a little card, your medical insurance card, I get in to a hospital. If you don't have the card, you don't. It's not barbaric, because it's all on money. And so if I've got the money, I deserve to go there. If you don't have the money, you don't. Now, this group of us, we go to nice hospitals because we've all got, there's 7 million South Africans who have medical insurance. 7 million out of 55 million. So we go to nice clinics. We get sorted out straight away. They call me sir and they call you ma'am. This group of people go to hospital and they wait for 4, 5, 6 hours before they're seen by a doctor. Then they're seen by someone and they wait another 4, 6 hours to get there, whatever, and then another, and then it's too late, so everything's closed, the pharmacy and that sort of drugstore kind of thing. So then they stay the night, and then they get more sick, and then their child, your 3-year-old dies. Now, this group of people who used to be concerned that you were carrying chairs, because we used to carry chairs, but we're not carrying chairs anymore, because the group has changed now. I don't go to that hospital anymore that your 3-year-old goes to. I go to these hospitals. So guess what? I don't feel your pain like I used to. So I don't say anything anymore. And so now you've got to start talking to this group of people who you thought would understand, because this group of people used to be that group of people right next to you. Are you getting it? Mm-hmm. And so the Hebrews become Egyptians. And it goes on. Right. You want to be a leader in this world? You want to be a leader in the most powerful country in the world? All of you here are in, I'm running out of paper, so I'll try and find it. I'll do it over here. All of us in the world. There's 7 billion people on the planet. 7 billion. Do you know where you are? In terms of wealth? Where are you?
Number 1.
Sorry?
Number 1.
Number 1. So there's nothing middle class about you, huh?
Not when you compare it to the greater.
So we always take the big view, compare with the whole. You don't take fractions of a fraction, you take fractions of the whole. So me, I'm the 1%. I'm the 1%, why? Because I own a motor vehicle that's killing the planet. I even own a computer, and guess what? I know you're going to be surprised, I know how to work it. Which immediately puts me right at the top of the 1%, in fact. Top of 1%. With the tertiary education that I've got, I keep on climbing. I'm right there. Now here's the thing. I've been brought up in a system that tells me that I'm middle class. If I get that wrong, if I don't know where I am, you're not going to get to where you want to go. So if I think I'm middle class, then there's part of me that's going to want to aspire to get higher. But if I realize I'm at the top already, then my perspective can change and I can begin to start serving and looking after those who are less. Every single one of you here are in number 1. Have you got clean water going into your house that you turn on a tap? You're number 1. Isn't that amazing? Just keep on going. There's so many measurements that we could do that. Number 1. And what does this world then expect of you? If you're going to try and make it in the world, there's a choice to make it in the world or change the world. I would love it that I could make it in the world and change the world. That's what I try to negotiate every day of my life. You know what I'm discovering as I get a little bit more truthful about who I am? That as I'm trying to change the world, I perpetuate the very things that I'm trying to change. Did you notice this group here? As lovely as they are, I mean, not one of them got up to protest. Sorry. That hurts now. No, it's not one of them said this is not right. Not one of them said I'm going to give up my chair and come and. Okay, one of them I had to send to help the wounded. Okay, but thanks so much for that, because there are people carrying chairs and then there are the wounded carrying chairs and they can't do it. They die. It's true. It's true. Okay, so are we getting this here?
Yeah.
So now, here's what I've learnt, is that when I'm sitting comfortably on this chair, and I don't know about your 3-year-old that's just died in the queue in the hospital, okay? It makes it very difficult for me to go and protest and put my life on the line. So the first thing for a leader, surely, is to understand the people at the bottom of the pile. And not just understand as a statistic, like I've told you here, 24 million earning that, Do you know their names? That it was Jason and his child, that it was Sarah and this, and it was, do you know their names? And you will not know their names unless you somehow travel down the pyramid and join people here. And if you can keep in touch with this group over here, you will have the courage to change some things over here. But if you're not in touch there, you will continue sitting on your chairs, even though you see people carrying chairs. When you know that she's got a bruise, you will get up and do it if you know her. And it won't come from that house we call white. It won't. So, this is not easy for Americans to hear. You're not well liked in the world. You know that. I can say that because during the 70s and 80s when I travelled, it wasn't nice to be a white South African. I felt ashamed of my country. And so we have to start doing something about this group of people here. We have to, and I'll close with this, we've got to end the apartheid between nations. You cannot have a person in South Africa having 3 chairs and some having none. It's not right, it's not fair. And eventually those who have none will say, we've had enough. Now just take that bigger. You cannot have a country in the world that has so much, surrounded by countries in the world that have so little. It's not right. You can't say we worked for it. Well, in actual fact, America was made out of slavery from this continent. You didn't work for it. It was made for you by hundreds and thousands of slaves. We're one planet. We have to start seeing ourselves as one world. And this country here cannot use all the resources. Nor can we, because we happen to be the richest in this continent. We have to break down the apartheid between nations. And to spend that amount on making dump heaps of other nations is very, very sad. So we've got work to do to change this world. I don't know. Some questions, comments? Differences. Difference is always really, really good.
I have a question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're not surprised.
How do you personally overcome the kind of feeling of overwhelmed by those numbers or that pyramid? We traveled to Khayelitsha today, and we were in Khayelitsha, and just you scan around, and there's 1 to 2 million people living in Khayelitsha. And we did get down and we said hello, and we played soccer, and we walked the neighborhoods, and we talked to people, and we asked names, but by God, I just felt overwhelmed, you know. What do you do? How do you deal with that?
Well, yeah, thanks for that. I mean, if I come back to the story here, it was Joshua who took over from Moses, and they kind of went, Joshua and some of them went into the Promised Land to give a report. They were spies, and they came back, remember, there were 12 of them, and they came back, and 10 of them said, there are giants, the people of Anak are there, they're giants. And they said these words, and we were to them like grasshoppers. Only 2 of them said, no, we can do it, we can go in. And so it's what someone has called the grasshopper complex. When we are surrounded by such towering giants, HIV, poverty, rape, violence against women, militarization, consumerism, etc., and just a huge sea of poverty, it's very easy to feel like a grasshopper. So the first thing is I need to acknowledge my grasshopper complex. That's the first thing. And if I don't acknowledge it, if I deny it, it's not going to be healthy. Then I need to find other grasshoppers. Other grasshoppers. Because it's interesting, grasshoppers. When they fly together, they really can be very, very effective. And so, how do I personally, one, I acknowledge it. The inward journey for me, the only stuff that makes some sense here is prayer and meditation. On just a psychological level of it's too big. To realize that I'm not the only being working for justice, that there's something bigger than me. Find other grasshoppers. And it's incredible when we start sharing what we have. And then most importantly, you speak today of Khayelitsha, it's finding then a small little group in Khayelitsha. It's the group within the group within the group within the group maybe, in a community that says this space over here, this tiny little space, we're going to transform. And it really is that one bite of the elephant kind of thing. And we know through history that you don't have to chew the whole elephant. That there comes that, as we've learnt about it, the tipping point. That is way beyond, it's nowhere near having to eat the whole thing. Something happens, there's a shift in society. So, for me personally, not denial, prayer, reflection there, plugging into a story, a narrative like this, and then joining with other grasshoppers, and especially the victim, especially the person who is suffering. And it's incredible what a small group of people whose lives are at stake can do. And then we need to get clever. So it's strategic in how we put our chairs down. Yeah.
How do you, I don't know how to word it the best, but how do you get through to those or work with those who are benefiting from the way things are now and try to show them that it is worthwhile to make the change?
Well, the first thing I've got to do there is acknowledge that I'm benefiting. So that's the harder journey for me to acknowledge. That I'm sitting on the branch that I need to cut. So what I need to do first is try and, if I'm going to be sitting on branches on this tree that's not just, and I want to cut these branches, then what I need to start doing is climb down to lower branches. Because if I'm going to cut a branch, I want to be closer to the ground, so I don't have longer to fall. So for me, the journey for myself is, again, if it was under apartheid, am I making an effort to cross over, to have friends that are of a different colour, a different class, live in a different environment? I need to start with my life changing. Am I living a life here that doesn't rely so much on oil? that uses less water, that uses less energy, that eats a different way, etc., etc. And so from there, and then it's about humbly, it's not about protesting against people. It's protesting for people. And that was one of the best or most important lessons I learned under apartheid with my father. That when we used to picket and that sort of thing, we used to write on the back of our pickets, "I protest not against you but for you." So when we this side, here, now let's just think about it. We're holding our chairs. They sitting there on their chairs. How do we convince, how do we move them? Well, first of all, we've got to admit somewhere that if I were them, I'd probably also be sitting on my chair. If you also went to a white school and a white education policy in a white area and this, you'd probably also believe what I believe. So that's the one thing. They are victims as much as we are. And so we protest as much for their liberation off their chairs, because guess what? They are not being human to sit on their chairs while others are holding. It's inhumane. So we need to protest to set them free. So that's one of the things of protest. That when we do protest, then it's not to damage you, it's to liberate you. And so it's done humbly, but it's done forcefully. And then creatively. I think the Occupy movement's creative. I think it can be creative. I mean, there's been a lot of creative things around that. Yeah. You've got to be careful if you support the Occupy movement, because if you do, the institution that you go to would struggle. Are you with me? The institution now suddenly, you see, this is the institution that you go to. It's made up of these people. It's not made up of those people. By and large. It's made up of both. So when you start opening the doors to that, where do you draw the line? It's hard work. Yeah? Yeah?
I was going to ask when and kind of how did you realize that you were kind of living in this, in the position that you are in as the 1%?
I mean, there are different moments. Obviously, the issue of, if I had to go through some isms, for example, one is the racism. I grew up in a home that was anti-apartheid struggle, etc., etc. Okay? But that journey of discovering my racism, so there was a journey. I know apartheid's wrong in my head, but it was a painful journey for me to work out and accept that apartheid's actually got into me. I'm loath to admit it, but it's there. Okay. And maybe it links to the two questions. How I've been, well, how I continue on a journey of transformation. Woman who listened to my language however many years ago and confront me on my language that was sexist, or that confront me on the way I relate with women. Their courage to stand up, but their courage to do it, or their way of doing it in love. And you know, you've heard the kind of, you may have heard it, speak the truth in love kind of thing. What my understanding of that is that you can speak the truth to someone if you want love to be the result. It's not about your tone of voice or how you do it or anything like that. It's about, what do you want? Do you want to hurt me with the truth, or do you want to heal me with the truth? If you want to heal me, then speak the truth even though it may hurt me. And I really believe we are intuitive enough, at least over time, maybe not immediately, to work out that the truth you've just spoken to me, you did to heal me, not to hurt me. So I don't mind someone cutting my body with a knife, if that person's called a surgeon. Because they cut me with the hole to heal me. But out on the street corner outside, I don't want to be cut by a knife, because that's to hurt. You're getting the difference. But they're both knives. They're both cutting my flesh, one's to heal, one's to hurt. So, woman speaking to me on the truth. Let's go to the environment. I arrive in a place called Holden Village, which is in Washington State, about 4 or 5 hours northwest of Seattle. So quite high up. Look it up. It's an awesome community. It was a copper mine in the 1950s that went bang because of the recession, all right, and lay fallow for about 11 years, and the Lutheran Church finally bought it for $1 and took it over. It's an interesting story. Only 500 people can live there maximum in the summer. In winter it goes down to 50 because the power is hydropower and everything freezes. You know it better than I do, okay? So I arrived there, and you have an orientation when you get there. You get there, you're around first timers. And they say to me, they ask me the question, Alan, what do you do with your, you call it garbage, we call it rubbish. What do you do with garbage? I say, I throw it away. They say, where's away? One question. The question asked, where is away? They said, Alan, in this place, there is no away. We live here as a community in the middle of nowhere. It takes 2.5 hours to get there by ferry. So if you're going to remove any waste products from that place, it's very, very expensive. So they try and work on about an 83% recycling. There are only 3 bins that you can place food in the entire village. All right? And everything else they try and recycle. So the first day I get there, you know I don't know what you call them, we call them serviettes, you call them napkins, huh? Okay? The first, I'm using lots of napkins. And you go to the bathroom, you know what I mean, and you're drying your hands. I'm using lots of napkins. By the third day, after the second day, it normally happens that way even in your country, the third day after the second day, because the second day I had to do garbology duty. What is garbology duty? Going around and collecting all the garbage of the village and sorting it out with my hands. What can we recycle? And we pour it on large sieves and we sort it all out. The third day, I'm not using serviettes or napkins any longer. When you and I are confronted with our waste, we will waste less. Until then, we will not. We will sit on our chairs. Where is away? I didn't know where away was. I've come back to Cape Town and found out where away is. 6,000 tons of waste goes into landfill from the city area every single day. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out there isn't enough room for that to continue. So, what has changed? People with courage, people with love, and good questions that have invited me to think about how I live life and the impact of my life. And so that then invites change. And it's still a journey. I'll give you an example. In Seattle as well, another community, I'm supposed to go over there and preach about this radical guy called Jesus, right? And someone asked me a question, says, do you have a car? I said, yeah. And then she says, but don't you know you're killing the planet? So I'm like a bit awkward. I'm a visiting speaker. I mean, you know what I mean? You've just called me like, now I'm killing the planet. I mean, it's a bit like I made you feel a little bit earlier, okay? And so I'm a little awkward and I kind of laugh. I said, yeah, I'm thinking they're kind of, you know, they're dead serious. So I said, well, what must I do? They said, no, well, like walk, use public transport, ride a bicycle. I said, oh, well, where I come from, you know, these people drive like maniacs. When you ride a bicycle, you're going to get killed. And she looks at me and says, so? I say, so you can't be serious. So she says, well, didn't Jesus say that you may lose your life? Now, that kind of radicalness I would have employed here with apartheid. That's what I grew up with. I grew up with people, knowing people who were willing to give their lives, and many of them did. I've needed other people, actually from your land, to challenge me that I actually got to transfer to other issues, etc. So we can help each other on these things. So what do I aim for? I aim for not having a motor vehicle, consuming a whole lot less, not being dependent on growing my own food. That's the kind of life I would like to